Right. Oh.
We are live. Fantastic. So, welcome everybody to Facebook Live. Wednesday, the 14th of September. We have a wonderful guest for you today. His name is Adrian Incledon-Webber. Adrian is an earth healer, a home healer, people healer, space healer. Adrian used to be an estate agent and has been working with dowsing all his life. And am I right in saying, Adrian, welcome, Adrian, perhaps you can tell us a bit more about what you do?
That covers most of it, I think.
Books. Yeah. I've forgotten the books.
Yeah, books, and I've got a DVD as well. But I've said primarily house healing is what it's all about, working with what's called geopathic stress, which there are many different interpretations of it. Geo from the earth and stress just means that we're dealing with problems from Mother Earth. But as you work through this, it gets far more complicated than that. And of course, there always has to be the human element, whether it's human emotions stuck in people's houses, psychic cords that we were just chatting about, psychic attack.
Yes.
There's so much more than just dealing with the energies from poor old Mother Earth, who's doing her best to cope with us living on her.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just checking we're actually live. Sometimes it's tricky to know. So what this does is it streams into Facebook.
Okay.
Somewhere we're actually live.
Somewhere in the world we're alive.
Oh, we're on. We are fine. We're good. There we go. That's brilliant.
Yeah, really, sort of house healing is the major part of it. But of course, with any work, whether you're dealing with earth energies, which of course then takes in sacred sites. Written 3 books, 1 DVD, and just generally very, very busy helping people all over the world.
You are, and before we started, Adrian, you were saying that you've got a waiting list of like nine weeks waiting list, which is incredible. And we discussed why that was. But before we do that, I'm just going to show people your lovely book. That's the book. This is the latest book, Heal Your Home 2. And this has got so much in it, Adrian, for healers personally, as well as for healing their own spaces. It's a brilliant book for healers to help them stay protected as well, isn't it?
It is. It was written really for people to be able to use most of it for their day-to-day lives, whether they're involved in healing or whether they're involved in business or just, if you like, leading normal lives. The book was written, all 3 books, but certainly Heal Your Home 1 and then Heal Your Home 2 have both been written as a self-help book for people. So, I've read so many books over the years. You read through it, you know exactly what the problems are you're facing in your home, and you get to the final page and go, yep, so what do I do about it?
Yeah.
And I just really wanted to put in mind so that, people would get to the final page and then there'd be a big healing section to actually work through. So really everything that I do, the whole of my healing, the way I do my healing is actually in there step by step by step, whether it's helping ghosts move to or spirits move to the light, whether it's helping psychic attack or clearing people's attachments. It's all in there for people to be able to help themselves. And if they can't, I do get a lot of emails from people saying, oh, I'm a bit stuck on this one. Can you help? And I'll do that when I can.
Wow, that's amazing. So hi, everybody. Just pop in the chat. Any questions or anything you want to share with Adrian, because this is what he's here for. If there's any questions that you have, please do put them in the chat.
Yeah, I'm not too frightening either. So
no, you're not at all.
Quite approachable.
Well, I've been on a course with you, wonderful course with you down in Avebury.
Yep.
With the earth healing course in Avebury, which was incredible. And great speakers as well. Met some lovely people, met some new friends, and we both really enjoyed it. And it was nice as well because there were lots of chaps there, which, can always be a situation with guys. They're reluctant to go to these healing things or spiritual things because there's no chaps. Well, you always have plenty of chaps there, which is really nice. So
yeah, well, but we always like to welcome the ladies along as well. And I think because it combines both. Dowsing does appeal to a lot of blokes generally. Whether it's on the archaeological side, the water side. But then when we get to the healing groups, well, I was running that for the British Society of Dowsers for many years. You get to the healing group, there were a lot more ladies involved there. Some of them then moved across to the Earth Energy group that I was also running. So we had this lovely crossover going on the whole time. And even though it was labeled an Earth Energy group, I would try and have some form of healing in there as well. So it would appeal to both parties.
Oh, that's
and I'm hoping as we did this year, we're going to be organising another one for probably early mid-May next year, which will involve a lot more ladies doing some speaking. So we hope we have one on essence making, another one communicating with trees. So it's going to be a nice balance, which will fit in quite nicely with the retreat you're doing in November, if you like, the divine masculine.
Yes.
We'll have the divine feminine and hopefully just be able to combine the two for the weekend.
Well, that's what it's all about. That's what we're meant to be here for, to do, isn't it? Combine these two beautiful energies together so they're working beautifully together in harmony.
As it used to.
Real life, as it used to.
Yeah.
And everybody respected and lifted up together, sort of thing. So, yeah,
exactly.
I'm looking forward to hosting that with you, Adrian. So that's a new retreat that's coming online it's an online event in November, and Adrian's one of the speakers, along with Tim Wilde, and we've got Solara and Nick as well, and also Alexandra Wenman. So yes, she's an earth healer. She's an angelic earth healer. So we've all got different ways of doing it, haven't we? And
we do, and I think we've got a common goal to be able to help the planet as much as we possibly can, and the people on it. And as I say in my book, I'm teaching a process to people in a very logical, down-to-earth way, and they can really change it and play with it as much as they want to make it work for them.
That's what I love about you, because you don't scare off people by being too woo-woo.
Hopefully not. Try not to.
My husband didn't run away, and normally he would head for the hills if somebody started being very woo-woo.
Yeah.
And he does freak out a bit if I start speaking light language. I'm afraid he has to run away then, or he goes very quiet.
Yeah.
I can't help it. It just comes out. So.
No, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think with so much of this, that we're all learning. It is an amazing age to live in. As the energy patterns change of the planet, and they certainly have in the 21st century, days are getting quicker. There aren't enough hours in the day to do what we used to do. Yeah. But I think we owe it to the population as a whole to be able to speak in language that they can understand. And I'm not trying to put people down on that, but when I first joined the British Society of Dowsers, there were people using all sorts of wonderful terms, thinking, wow, they must know an awful lot of stuff. And then I asked them what they meant. And they go, not really sure, but we heard somebody else say it and it sounded really good. So I try and cut through as much of that as I can to make it as approachable as I possibly can.
Absolutely. Well, you know what, Adrian, in the farming community, there are many farmers that I know, and old farmers, from days gone by, like my great-grandfather, for instance, who were very psychic.
Mm-hmm.
And they used dowsing. They used dowsing rods to find where their water was on the farm.
Yep.
And they were, really in tune with nature and earth. And it wasn't considered woo-woo or strange. It was just the way they were.
Absolutely.
That's how to work with the land, They were really connected to it.
Yep, very much so. And I think that happens an awful lot, although I think a lot of time they would never ever see the spiritual side behind it. The question I always used to ask is, where does the information come from? And a lot of people say, well, it's actually radiations, things are radiating differently in the ground. But I think if you look at density, you look at vibrational levels, everything's vibrating at a different level. But there has to be that connection with upstairs to be able to find, say, underground water, or to find a drain pipe. It's not just the vibrational level. There has to be that spiritual connection. And that's where a lot of farmers will go, yeah, whatever. And, just say, look, no, it's nothing to do with that. It's all radiation coming out of the ground. So the jury's out a wee bit on it. But, some of the lovely farmers up here in the Yorkshire Dales, you start talking to them about the spiritual side of dowsing and complete shut off. But if you then start talking about finding water, boreholes, they're straight with you and say, yeah, come up and have a look.
It's interesting, isn't it? How I suppose the programming has taken it, out of their system. That's one of the things that's been blocking us from achieving access to our psychic gifts and intuitive.
Yeah, absolutely, big time. And I think that, when we chatted the other day, that, people often say, well, where did your psychic, how you can develop your psychic abilities, but I think you tend to be born with them. And my mother was incredibly psychic, and so was her mother, although I'd never met her. So you call it kind of like generational gifts or curses, whichever direction you're coming from. It's very difficult being a sensitive, especially as a young lad. You're there, and just the world is affecting you, but you don't know why.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You said your father quite spiritual, or was it? No, he was the other way. He was regimented.
Fighter pilot. As far as he's concerned, once you're dead, you're dead. But he's now passed on, and he's been back to me a couple of times saying, did you know that you were right? There is actually something else going on up here. So I said, well, yeah, I did try and tell you before you went. But yeah, so he now knows that, life does continue beyond the grave.
So you obviously were what used to be an estate agent.
Yes.
What?
Put my head in shame. Yeah.
No, not at all, because I know that you were a very conscientious one. I know that from what we've talked about and just knowing you personally.
Yeah.
What was the turning point? You sort of described that in your book that you started to see these homes with these certain patterns.
Yep.
And can you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, not a problem. It's because the universe works in weird and wonderful ways. I never ever wanted to be a salesman. I wanted to be outdoors. But if they could see what my future was going to bring, they obviously had to take you through these various lessons to learn along the way. And of course, the ideal one was an estate agent. You were dealing with lots of people and trying to help them. But it was when you walked into certain people's houses and you kind of shudder and you think, I really don't want to be here. It's cold, it's miserable, it just doesn't feel right. And there were always the houses that were the difficult ones to sell. People would walk in and say, look, it ticks every box, but we just don't like it, so we're not going to buy it. Sometimes, you could walk upstairs and you maybe see, a family house, one toothbrush in the holder, either mum has gone or dad's left the house, they're getting divorced. But what really struck me is in the early days, we sold this lovely house just outside Godalming. And it was just a perfect Victorian family home, big detached house. And we'd sold it for a couple who were getting divorced. 3 years later, we got a phone call to say, well, can you come and value the house for us? Yep, no problem. Turned up. Why are you moving so quickly? We've split up. We're getting divorced.
Oh, wow.
Put it on the market, sold it because it was one of those, we could sell it every day of the week. And then almost 3 years to the day, a phone call from the people, can you come and value the house? And you're thinking, uh-oh, it's not happening again. You walked in, yep, getting divorced. And that happened for pretty much every 3 years over the 24, 25 years that I owned the business.
Wow.
I did get to know the neighbor. I knew the neighbor quite well. And once I'd got out of the business and started to do what I'm doing and working on people's houses, I did talk to the neighbor one day and said, how well do you know the new chap next door? This is about 6-9 months down the line. He said, yeah, I know him really well. Can you get him round for a bite to eat, he and his wife? Yes. What? You're not talking about that spooky stuff you're doing, are you? I said, no, I wouldn't, unless the subject comes up, So we got him round and we got chatting and they said, look, what are you doing now? We know you've left the business. And I said, I'm house healing. So, of course, the wife piped up, said, what's all that about? And I sort of explained. And she said, I've always felt a bit odd in the house since we bought it. And I said, do you know the reason why? And I explained it. So the husband then said his first comment was, so if you knew this pattern was there, why did you sell the house to us in the first place? Which I thought was actually quite a good point.
Well, yeah, but you weren't 100% sure.
No, I wasn't. And I said, look, do you mind if I do some work on the house? Yeah, no problem. So they've now been there 15, 16 years. So that pattern's broken. But it was that really, I became incredibly intrigued by it all. And then linking with the dowsing, going on a geopathic stress course. I'd never heard of the term before. And as soon as the tutor mentioned it, that was it. You know, you get that. Yeah, it's almost like a bolt of lightning. You sit up very straight and go, geopathic stress, what's all that about? And that was really it. They lit the blue touch paper and 0 to 60 in about half a second. And here I am 15, 16 years later, doing what I love doing.
So that was geopathic stress as opposed to a program that was locked in there.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. Yeah, it's a bit of both, Georgie. It's very difficult rather than just working on just the human emotional element, which obviously, you know, had seeped into the walls, the carpets, the floors, whatever.
Yeah.
But you've also got, because we now know with Emoto's work that water holds consciousness. So, of course, you know, the consciousness of everybody that's been in that house in the past would have sunk into that water. Now, it's moving all the time. But then if you've got an unhappy couple up the road, that will affect the house. So you've got to look at the water aspect, work on that. But, of course, you've also got energy lines which pick up on emotion. So it's quite a tangled web to unweave. But, you know, you've got to start with spirits to begin with, whether there are any ghosts in the house, which there were a couple that need to be moved on. Attachments to the family, emotional stuff that they've picked up on. But you've got to look at the energetic patterns as well, because it's all kind of tied up as one horrible bundle, and you just need to tease it all out along the way.
Absolutely. Amazing. So there's so many different types of things that can be in a home and causing issues. And would you say that if people bought this book, they'd be able to do it on their own? Because I know you've got a big waiting list if there's people with problems in their homes.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah.
If they're healer type people, which most people are that watch this.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, it's written in a way that, you know, it's introducing people to what the problems might be. There's my big checklist in there. You can download a free workbook from my website anyway to connect it with the book. So yes, and I always say to people, it's a process. If you read through it in a very logical way, it will be able to help people do what they need to do. Now, if you're moving spirits on, to me, it's a lovely thing to do. And it's the first thing I would always teach people on a course, because if you start working on people's homes, you're changing the vibrational energy. So the first thing to kick off, if you haven't moved them along, are going to be spirits.
Yes.
So you're going to get things moving, and it's not as though they're detrimental. They often are as unaware of you as you are of them. But if their vibrational energy change, they begin to feel uncomfortable, then you're going to start having problems. So moving spirits on first and foremost is the best way to do it. And it tells you in the book how to do it. It's a bit like you and I meeting over a cup of coffee somewhere and just chatting. You know, you're talking to somebody in a very friendly way, showing them a vision of what awaits them as they step through this beam of white light in front of them. Okay. So it's a very simple process to go through, unless the spirit doesn't want to go for some reason. And then you've got to try and work out why.
Yes. Gosh, amazing. Incredible work. I'm just going to say, Fiona says, Mylar. Fiona, can you expand? What does that mean? Do you know what that means, Adrian?
No.
Oh, she says, my late mother had our family home doused remotely and have had lots of issues. She had cancer 3 times whilst living there, and it was probably exacerbated by the geopathic stress amongst the other issues. Thanks, Fiona, for that.
Yeah, very much. And there was a lot of work done before the First World War, just after the First World War in Germany, by a guy, Gustav von Pohl, who looked at what he would call black lines. Now, I don't like the term black lines because I like to really work out exactly what the lines are so we can actually deal with them in a logical manner. But he looked at this town called Wilsberg it's northeast of Munich, and it had one of the highest cancer rates of anywhere in Germany, and he wondered why. So he went down there, talked to the mayor. The mayor gave him permission to look through all the hospital records. I mean, that would never happen these days, would it? With data protection. And he looked at all the addresses because the people didn't move very much in those days. And they were sort of big houses that families had lived in for years and years and years, that he then called cancer houses. You know, they had a very high degree of cancer. And then he brought a whole bunch of his dowsing mates down. Von Pohl was escorted around the town by the police, so he couldn't confer with them. The dowsers went around all the streets and developed this amazing map showing where all these black lines were, whether energy lines or watercourses. And every house that one of these things ran through had a high rate of cancer in it. So there is a correlation between cancer and geopathic stress, but you've got to work out what the geopathic stress is. It won't just be an energy line. It might not just be a watercourse or a dynamic energy line, or even EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, can all add to it. So yeah, Fiona's right. But of course, one thing is you can backward dowse and find out what the problems were.
Wow, amazing. I did try dowsing, Adrian. I bought some rods and I've given them to my husband because I was just a bit clunky with them. I prefer to use my pendulum for
same
dowsing.
thing.
But it's the same thing, isn't it? So you either use the rods, or you use your pendulum. Yeah.
And then, gradually over the years, I rarely ever use both these days because, if I'm asking a question, I normally get a comment coming in from upstairs to say, that's what it is. Yeah. Dowsing, when I'm doing it, it does tend to slow me down a wee bit, which is good. It gives me time to concentrate on what also needs to be done. So I will use dowsing rods, but in most cases, it's just waiting for stuff upstairs to come in.
Oh, that's fantastic. So the dowsing rods are used more for water courses outside potentially, and working out where stone circles used to be, where the stones are missing and that kind of thing.
They're a good direction finder. You can do the same with pendulums. You can get your pendulum swinging and say, right, where was the nearest stone? And then the pendulum stops swinging, where the stone used to be. But if you ask a pair of dowsing rods, right, show me to where the nearest stone was, normally they'll turn. You just follow them until they cross. So they both have their uses, and I would say in healing, a pendulum is probably more useful or more user-friendly. Because if you've got somebody sitting in front of you or lying on a couch, it's much easier to use a pendulum rather than potentially stick a dowsing rod in somebody's ear. I haven't done yet, but it could easily happen.
When I'm doing chakra clearing, I use a dowser going through the chakras. And then that's really efficient. Oh, Fiona says the house also had water problems deep below. So, yeah, it's not always good to have water under your house, is it?
No. You see, I would tend to look at things like water veins as the main troublemakers rather than a big underground stream somewhere. But obviously, big underground stream you can do work on. When I say I work on water veins, they're normally between about 10 and 30 feet beneath the house. Quite small rivulets of water running through. But of course, they will eventually run into a culvert. They'll run into a bigger stream, which then runs into a river, which then runs into the oceans. So by doing work on the small items, you're starting to expand that healing web into the oceans of the world.
Yeah, it's really important work, isn't it? Because as we know, the water, it's all about the water, especially at the moment. For some reason, they're saying that.
Absolutely.
Just wanted to go back to some of the little questions that we had earlier. So some of the things that have been affecting me personally, just very recently, was that thing I was telling you about last night with the mic.
Yep.
And it really did feel like I told you the tech gremlins were at play. Can you expand a little bit on that? Because I said, is there really such a thing as a tech gremlin?
I think that there is, but it depends on what we want to call them. I would say, sometimes if you've got a spirit in the house, they can interfere with some of the workings of TVs, telephones and things. But as we've worked on your place, there are no spirits there anymore anyway. Yeah. But you do get these little elementals that pop through. The earth elementals, the gnomes, the air elementals, you get the fairies, water sylphs that can come through and they think it's funny. They can start causing little niggly problems. So it's always good just to and we can talk about the ultrafine mesh net of light and love as we go through, but what I often would do before I start work in the mornings is just pull an ultrafine mesh net of light and love through the whole house, picking up anything detrimental. Just like a trawler's net moving through the house, picking up anything detrimental or inappropriate to my healing work during the day.
Oh, okay,
So
that's great.
I'll always do that when I'm doing, like today, doing the talk today. You just do a general clearing, so the energy patterns of the house are right for me in my office. The rest of the house is living accommodation, so it's a very different feel to it.
Yeah.
So probably one of the little gnomes sitting there causing problems. And they are quite mischievous.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I kind of couldn't get my head around the whole fact that they were actually real. So maybe they're doing it to show me that they are.
Sometimes, and they do have weird and wonderful ways of actually showing that they are around. And of course, sometimes it can be a really weird smell. It can often be like a bit like an off-meat smell. If you've ever been in the countryside and you've disturbed a deer, for instance, that kind of musky type smell. And of course, if they get trapped in your house, they're not the sharpest tools in the woodshed, bless them. I love them to bits, and I do work with them. But, if they get trapped in the house, they can cause all sorts of niggly problems.
Okay, so I'll do that then. I'll have a little bit of a clear.
Yeah, they can beat up the cat, the dog, they can be quite nasty.
Oh, and somebody said that it is Mercury retrograde. Yes, I know it is Mercury retrograde. And it has been causing its little issues. And you try not to focus on these things, don't you? Because by focusing on it, then you're calling that in a little bit as well. So there's a bit of a thing there. For me, mentally, if I'm thinking, it's Mercury retrograde, then I'm actually calling in the communication issues.
Absolutely.
So I try to not think about it too much. Yeah.
It's a bit like the full moon, isn't it? I know full well when it's coming up, although I've got a diary here and there's always a little sort of full moon in there. But it's normally about 3 or 4 days beforehand I start to think, hang on a minute, I'm not sleeping well tonight, which is unusual for me. When's the full moon? 3 nights' time. So, it does have that marked effect on so many people.
And we were talking about this latest full moon, Adrian, weren't we? And about how kind of, I'm going to say weird that the energies were, because they were very different and the moon looked different. It was kind of throwing out this field, this rainbow field, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Can you expand on what your feelings are in it?
Yeah, I think with all of these, it depends. I mean, there were many different types of moon. If you look at from a Native American point of view, they had names for all the moons. Yes. And I just think sometimes it can be a download. We often get downloads from above during a full moon period. Obviously, it has such a marked effect on the tides of the planet. And we as 80% water, it's going to have the same effect on us. But of course, you do get these bulletproof people, it just doesn't bother them. And I kind of do wish sometimes I was in that group,
But I think for us, because we are the sensitives, the empaths, the sensitives, the ones with the 6 senses and the intuitives, you do feel everything.
Absolutely.
Whereas what I call the 100% humans don't really feel it quite the same as we do.
No.
It's just, I don't know what, it just is how it is.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend up because we've got a great little community and pub up in the village. And I'm sitting up there one day, taking the dog for a walk and a quick pint on the way back, and sitting down talking to one of my mates up there about the full moon. And obviously I could see a guy next door earwigging a wee bit. He said, that's really just answered a big question that I had. He said, I've never, ever been able to sleep around the full moon period. And he said, I just thought it was me. But thank you for that, because I feel so much better now. Oh, that's fine, no problem. But it can happen with the dark moon. The dark of the moon, a new moon as well, can be very good for new projects. The full moon can be quite debilitating at times with its energy patterns. But of course, it can also be uplifting depending on what's going on at the time.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I needed to keep a diary, because that's every now and again, usually once a month or maybe sort of about once a month, I get this thing where I have a massive clearing. Yep. And it's a migraine, and you can feel it in your body. You can feel it in your gut and all the way through your body. And then it literally takes a day and it's gone. But it's like this, it's when there's an upgrade of some sort. Yep. And then it's the aftermath of the upgrade.
Okay.
And I can feel the upgrade happening, and then I can feel this pattern. But I think it is linked to the moon, because When was the moon full? Was it last weekend?
Saturday, yeah.
That would make sense because the upgrade was on Sunday.
Yeah.
I could see it happening on Sunday. All my ears were going and crinkling, and I always feel like I'm getting these little aliens like doing laser work on me. And then we went into Merlin's pool below St Nectan's Glen between.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
Between Tintagel and St Nectan's Glen, and Phil and I and two German friends went there to cleanse.
Yep.
And went down into the water, and it was very powerful. In fact, it was kind of a little bit too powerful in a way because it kind of had this effect on us all.
Yeah.
And left everybody feeling a bit sort of discombobulated, but it's sort of, several days on has been a good thing, but initially afterwards it was quite activating, and the body was catching up with it all.
Yeah, and it does. Of course, the brain is a remarkable organism, if you like, or organ within our bodies. We don't fully understand it, but to me, it's that divine connection with upstairs. It's part of who we are, and I think everybody can connect to it if they want to, but not everybody does. It's almost as though if you start connecting to these things, it almost destroys the world as you know it. And you kind of had to it's a bit like a Lego set, isn't it? You've got to try and rebuild it all into the way that you'd like it to be.
And interestingly, because of I read the notes of the interview that you did with your friend Michelle.
Yeah.
And you were saying that, and I can relate to this. Once you hit that spiritual path, you can't get off it.
No.
But it's so transformative that your whole world changes, and your perspective changes, and the things that you once did no longer resonate. Some of the people that you're with no longer feel right, and or you become closer to some people, and it's so. And you said also that it's a lonely situation because you're going through it, your own personal thing on your own, aren't you?
Absolutely. And of course, it's very different to every experience anybody else has had.
Yeah.
And it really is, you will lose probably 70 to 80%, if not 90% of your friendship base. You look at people in different ways and they look at you in different ways as well. I know when I left my business and started doing what I'm doing now, my partner at the time, and in fact, probably most people I knew, the solicitors and the estate agent, thought I was having a nervous breakdown. And I thought, well, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. This is the path that I have to follow. And then, of course, you got to unravel yourself. And I think that's the real hard one. I mean, my wife's brother always said, well, if leading a spiritual life is so great, why is it so hard? Mm. Because, you look at yourself and, we're all sort of imperfectly perfect. We are all unique beings, fabulous beings. But a lot of people don't look at themselves that way. And you've really got to start deciding what you want out of life, how you want to treat people, how you would like people to treat you. And it's probably one of the hardest things you will ever do. It's so easy just to toe the party line. Yeah. Just to step off that pathway and, start trundling down this one. It's not it's never gradual. It's kind of, it's there and it's kind of there. And you think, oh, hang on a second.
No. And I think for many of us, and we were already on the path and doing things and in that sort of mentality. But I think for me particularly, and I know many others and a lot of the people that will be watching today, 2020 March was like this kickstart, this catapult. Yeah. It's almost like we were put on a big giant catapult and pinged right over somewhere else. And it was quite extraordinary how it happened to so many people then. Like they really weren't. I mean, they were awake, but it was like this full on, full steam ahead, not just trotting along. We were galloping, it was full on.
Oh yeah. And as you say, you can never unlearn anything. Once it's there, that's it. You can't go back.
No.
A lot of people, I think, probably would say, I'd like to go back, but if you ever gave them the chance, they wouldn't. They would just keep forging forward because there's so much to learn out there. It's okay. You can bunk conspiracy theories. You can douse for conspiracy theories. You can douse for life on other planets. The only thing that ever limits your dowsing is your imagination. So if you just let your imagination go wild, so, it's a fascinating world out there. And, just make sure that you're protected, before you go out again. It's always very, very important. It's that classic bit, if you go out, just make sure you've got protection on, and then that way you're safe. You're not going to be bothered by other people's energy patterns, emotions, psychic attack, etc.
Can you give us a bit more, some physical tips on what they could do? We were talking about going back out into, we were talking about the effect of the lockdown and how it had made quite a few people become insular, and even the ones that are very gregarious like myself, sort of, because of the spiritual thing, tended to stay away from the outside world because it was easier to do that.
Yep.
Now, but definitely forcing myself to get back out there and integrate with my ordinary, kind human friends.
Yeah, it is hard.
We need all sorts in our lives.
We do, and I would call the sort of most people I know, I call my life a normal life, and I call everybody else's life the physical world. So I know what I'm doing is quite normal. But of course, during the lockdown, I know we chatted about it a couple of weeks ago. One of the most intriguing things to me was this 2-meter rule.
Yeah.
Now, probably most of the people listening will know all about auric fields. We've got 5 or 6, so I can never quite remember how many. But, our first one is the etheric field, which is like a second skin.
So it's just on the edge.
Yeah, just, it's probably about maybe an inch off your skin. So it's kind of, it's almost like a protector.
Yeah.
Then you've got your emotional field, which normally at rest is about 2'6" wide. So anybody coming into there, you're connecting with them in a very deep emotional way. Mm-hmm. But then, of course, the next one is your mental field. Now, the mental field normally stretches to about 6 feet.
Which is 2 meters, is it?
No, 6 foot 6 inches is 2 meters. So we're just 6 inches out of that communication range. So not only were we cut off socially from people, we were also cut off psychically. Because so often when we do meet, and when you and I met for the first time at the Earth Energy Group, you meet people and you automatically, you almost know you're going to like them.
Yes.
A lot of information moves through the ether, through these auric fields, especially the mental one when we meet. It's almost as though a change of ideas will happen, even though we don't know it's happened. Yeah. But of course, with that 2-meter rule, we were cut off completely from everybody.
Wow.
Spooky stuff.
Yeah, it is. And so, I will go to, maybe in the future, some point, go to some big events like, concerts and things, probably more down towards the kind of folky stuff and like-minded soul stuff rather than going out into a big rock concert somewhere in London, because I don't think I could cope with that now.
No, it's interesting how people's perspective has changed. Yeah.
So what would you say as a practical tip to do? Say you're in the car and you're on the way to the supermarket.
Yep.
You're driving along and you think, right, oh gosh, I need to protect myself.
Yep. Very quickly, if you haven't got much time, then if you just stick a bubble of white light around yourself. But what I also do is then make sure it's mirrored on the outside.
Oh.
So that any thoughts coming, people sending bad thoughts your way, whatever, just get reflected, get sent back to them, but you send it back with unconditional love.
I see. Okay.
That's very simple. But of course, the one main problem with that is if you've got any attachments, these blobs of emotional energy that other people shed attached to you, they will still be inside the bubble of white light. So we need to find some way of actually clearing ourselves and putting protection on at the same time. And I use a breathing method, basically, which uses colors. So I tend to now I used to use my solar plexus as the center of my body rather than the heart. But I've now moved up to the thymus. So just in between.
Heart.
Yeah, the higher heart. I still like the thymus chakra, and I know it's called the higher heart. That probably describes it better than most. Mm-hmm. But I tend to use that. So I tend to breathe the colors into that. And at cellular level, see these colors move through my body, cleansing my body, moving through the auras, and then back to form a skin. So you've got brown from your feet, you've like a sort of red brick color for your knees, and you've got your red base chakra, your orange solar plexus, your orange sacral, yellow the solar plexus, green the heart, aquamarine the thymus or the upper heart chakra, light blue for the throat, dark blue for the third eye, purple for the crown, and then you breathe in silver, and then you breathe in gold. And that way, you just breathe them in and you just push them out to the edge of the auric field. That's clearing, and then you bring them back in again and just gradually build up that layer. And you can do it whilst in the shower. You can do it whilst you're having breakfast. The one good thing about it is you don't need to sit there and try and find an extra 3, 4, 5 minutes of your day to do it, because everybody leads such busy lives.
Yes.
You can just do it along the way quite easily.
It
is in my book.
Yes, wonderful. Yes. I often do that process in the shower. So in the morning, I go out, stand on the earth, usually in my dressing gown with the dogs in the paddock,
Yep.
ground in, connect upwards, and just sort of greet the day, as it were.
Yep.
Then I have a shower, and when I have the shower, I imagine, because I work with angelics, so I ask Archangel Zadkiel to bring his lilac fire source, flame or source, whatever you want to call it, or you could bring in the rainbow fire source, which is the multicolored one that potentially you're actually talking about, if you think of it like that. Bring that through from the crown through and see it connecting through and going outwards. Perfect. So I do that, and then I imagine that everything that's no longer needed to go into Mother Earth as fertilizer, because she will transmute it into light.
Nice.
Yeah. That works. That seems to work.
Yeah, I tend to throw my stuff upwards into the universe.
Oh, okay. It's interesting.
But both. Mother Earth's quite capable of dealing with this stuff, and the universe is as well.
Yes.
But any form of protection, and once you start doing the protection, upstairs will throw extra protection in as well. They like people to help themselves.
Initially, yes.
So rather than saying, could the universe protect me today, please? They go, yeah, well, we'll do it today, but you're a lazy person, and you need to do something yourself tomorrow.
Yes, you need to do the work. Exactly. Yeah. That's what we're being called to do, isn't it? To do the work. Absolutely.
Yep. And the good thing is, you can, as you're doing it for yourself, you can do it for members of the family as well, and your friends, and include anybody that you want in with that. So, yeah, not a problem.
Oh, right. So we could do it for the whole household in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I often regularly do with my wife and with the hound dog as well.
Yeah.
He picks up elementals from the garden. It's a bit kind of scatty sometimes, so I do a clearing on him. So, yeah.
Oh, bless him. We've got a question here, a big question from Marianne Voss, who's in the south of France. Hi, Marianne. The day we moved into this house 15 years ago, we started arguing in the family. I'm sure I'm here to clear it. We've had water leaks around the house. I think there is a water source running in the area. Our house was built 20 years ago, and the retired couple who bought the land and had the house built only stayed 2 to 3 years.
Okay. Right. First and foremost, she's got what I would call 2 life forms in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
No spirits, but a couple of life forms. Now, life forms basically are created through strife, upset, stress. Typical. The world wars produced an awful lot. People's anxiety, hatred. On both sides, it doesn't matter whose side you were on, whether it's the Germans or the English or the French, whatever. But trouble, strife. A lot of them, it's almost as though their combined thoughts can create quite a dark form, and these dark forms can then sort of move into people's houses. Now, there's a lot of them have been moved on, and this is what I do regularly with people's homes. But when I was doing one about 5 months ago, I just asked, when was it created? Was it 20th century? No. Before the 20th century? No. So we're looking 21st. Yeah. Okay. So then you had to try and work out what it was. COVID. Yes. So a lot of these things have actually been formed during the lockdown period, when people were so overwhelmed and never really sure, whether they'd be alive tomorrow or next week. So a lot of them were formed. Again, it's in my book. If she wants to drop me an email, I can probably do it now if you want. It's very quickly.
Mariana, yeah. You can see the
Let me just do that now for her very quickly.
Okay.
So that's what I do with them. And it sounds quite strange thing to do, but it has to be fun, some of this healing. If you just imagine, it's a bit like you would imagine the Ark of the Covenant, this beautiful gold carved chest. And I placed that over somebody's house. So you're trapping the thought forms, life forms inside, but it's all mirrored. So it's a little bit like Indiana Jones. And what then happens, the mirrors and the walls start to collapse and the pressure builds up and up and up. And when it gets so great, the lid pops off and they literally got shot up into the universe. They get picked up and dealt with with a kindly and appropriate fashion, and then just use the ultrafine mesh net of light and love just to clear away any residue that may be there. And I would then ask Archangel Ferael, who I work with, just to come up and pick up the remains of the box and take it up into the light. Simple as that. So
that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Mariana says, my husband would see the land as a graveyard. And she says the Templars were in this area many years ago. Well, we know many Templars or Cathars,
yeah.
were persecuted. And I know quite a few of our community are linked, definitely through their souls, through the lineage, that lineage, the Templar lineage.
Absolutely.
I wonder if that's something there. She says, thank you.
Often,
knowing Mariana, she'll get this sorted. She does things like this,
Yeah, but just let me know if she wants to drop me an email just after the weekend to let me know whether there's been any changes. Now, of course, the things with a lot of people associate graveyards with ghosts.
Yes.
But then, if you were a spirit, would you want to hang around a cold graveyard? No. You'd go down to the local pub or the cafe or somewhere that's giving off some really amazing vibrations and go and enjoy yourself. So most times you don't find ghosts in graveyards.
Oh, she says she's buying your book and joining the course.
Okay, I haven't got a course booked in yet. I'm going to be doing some online stuff early part of next year. Right. The courses, I'm looking to try and put together a course for probably early next year, probably sort of March next year. But it'll be depending on what she's looking to try and do, whether it's going to be 3 lots of 2 weekends practitioners course, or whether what I'd like to try and do is maybe do a 1.5 day course, 1 day to go through sort of 10 of the most popular questions or the most detrimental things I find in people's houses, and then do a healing on them the next day as a kickstart for people.
Oh, what they're saying, Adrian, as well, is it's the online retreat that we're part of in November that I'm hosting, and the masculine, that's going to be amazing. Awakening the Divine Masculine Retreat. We're really looking forward to bringing this because there are so many chaps out there who need some grounded people bringing across information to help them understand what's going on, because the women seem to be in front of this game and the chaps are looking, and a bit that their ego and the 3D matrix is bringing them back to not look at it, and they're sort of stepping on and stepping off, as you know, we've seen with Phil, stepping on, stepping off, things happening and then going back again. And seeing, this is what we came up with. We came up with this Divine Masculine Retreat in order to support men and their partners, but also to support women whose Divine Masculine was asleep. Firstly asleep, so no action was being taken. They've got all the creativity of the Divine Feminine, but no action is happening. Or women who are in their injured masculine, for instance, wounded masculine. I would say that I used to fit into that, and that does come out in me sometimes when I'm fighting, standing up to something or getting stressed, working too much, that sort of thing. Really, it's there initially to support the men, so we can put it out to more men, but also for the women as well, isn't it? It's a two-way thing.
Well, we're sort of both made up of sort of X and Y chromosomes. There's a man and a woman living in every body, depending on where that mix goes. But the one thing this is a great thing about upstairs, and I was just waking up the other day, and we're almost just coming out of the toxic masculine.
Yes.
So we've had, the divine feminine, but even in the pagan days before the Romans came in, there was still a great balance between the masculine and the feminine. And of course, then, the Romans came in with their very masculine approach. We then had religion coming in, which was then controlled by the men. And so it was really the toxic masculine age. Now we're coming out of it slowly but surely. So the more work, and I mean, the retreat I'm looking forward to, definitely, the more work we can do, we're going to get that balance back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Fiona says, cats, animals, do we need to cleanse our animals? Can we sage around them if they've got these pixies attached and things?
Yeah, what I do, I would again use that ultrafine mesh net of light and love. So if it's like a trawler net, and there are various not I was going to say incantations, but there are various phrases that you can use. But what I would normally do, say with my little lad here, is if he's acting a bit funny, scampering around the room or just being naughty or whatever, with cats as well, you can tell when they're on edge. It's just pull this ultrafine mesh net of light and love through their aura and their physical body, removing all detrimental and inappropriate energies that may be attached to them. The net gets taken up to the light, and then you just flood the animal with light and love, leaving it in peace, balance, and harmony.
Amazing. And that's so simple to do, isn't it? When they come in from being outside, you can just do that.
Yep. And I do it fairly regularly. But if they're elementals, what I would normally do, if you're people looking at the course, looking at the talk today are dowsers or healers, is just ask whether an elemental is attached. So elementals we don't want to send to the light. With those, we can just ask Archangel Uriel, the Archangel of the Earth, to come along to be able to help remove them from the animal and then help them back into the wilds, back into the countryside, for them to look after the flora and fauna over the sort of the autumn and winter period, to do what they're there to do naturally rather than attacking the animals.
Right. Okay. So I've got a little terrier that's a bit cheeky.
Yep.
And we were thinking, she needs to have her puppies now because we know that will calm her down.
Yep.
She's got a lot of elemental energy, but also starseed energy as well. So she comes in and she, for no apparent reason at all, starts chewing things. Okay. And there's no reason for that at all. She's had a big walk or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, just yeah. The great thing is you can put this net on the back door, so it's permanently there. Just give it a bit of a tickle up every week, so that anybody that actually enters the house leaves all their sort of dross and all the stuff you don't want to be brought in the house behind.
And then you can ask for every now and again anything that's on that net.
Yep.
If it's of the earth, elemental needs to go back to the earth with Archangel Uriel. Anything else needs to go to the light.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh, I love this.
Come on, nice and simple. I try and keep it as simple as I possibly can.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Oh, Fiona says that's super helpful, Adrian. Thank you. Now, I think they are all interested in your courses. So in November, when Adrian's on the retreat, you will be getting all his contacts and details, and that will all be there, won't it? And you'll be or each host or guest is offering a free gift, so that gives people a chance to be able to join this the mailing list, and then you'll automatically send those courses out to them, won't you, in the new year?
Absolutely.
So that just happened.
Georgie, I just kind of stopped doing them over the lockdown period anyway, and it's a little bit like you're talking about the rock concerts. People haven't fully got their confidence back yet to actually sort of venture a long distance. So I'm waiting for a phone call back from the same lady that I hired the hall from just outside Avebury. There'll be the big one will be happening there, but I'll be teaching some, if you like, Heal Your Home courses, probably March, probably then in June, and then probably in September. So, and plus with a friend of mine, we'll be doing a lot of filming to put some of this stuff on as much as we can online.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Looking forward to that, because I know we talked about doing something at the farm here once we've got the retreat set up.
Absolutely. I'd love to come down.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Adrian. Well, Adrian, we've taken lots of your time up today and we've gone slightly over, so I do apologise about that. But
that's not a problem.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us, both now and in the future.
watching, you know, in their own time in the future. So thank you so much for being with us. And Adrian, thank you for being with us.
A pleasure. Anytime, Georgie.
And looking forward to connecting with you again in November.
Indeed, indeed.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you again for having me on.
Take care, everybody. Lots of love.